The second part of the presentation is really going to be looking at the astronomy of the Vedas, specifically the Puranic astronomy. This one is not going to be as certain as the last one because there's a lot of uncertainty as to like what some of these things mean, and that's why it's now here the mysteries of the sacred universe. There's a lot of mysteries involved in it. We've made headway into some of them, but there's still a lot that we need to understand. So if you don't completely get it, it's okay. But the thing that I will promise after this presentation is that you will get a broad understanding of what the issues are, of what is at stake here. And when you go into the text, like the fifth canto, which is this is mainly the fifth canto of the Bhagavad Purana, or any of the Puranas, you will understand what is going on to some degree. It won't be like this. Oh, fluffy ideas that who knows what. You will have a mental picture of what's going on, and that is very important. So that is what this is mainly aimed to do. So, what is our place in the universe? The view of the universe impacts the understanding of the self. Here's a quote. Far out in the uncharted backwaters of the unfashionable end of the western spiral arm of the galaxy lies a small, unregarded yellow sun. Orbiting this at a distance of roughly 92 million miles is an utterly insignificant little blue-green planet whose ape-descended life forms are so amazingly primitive that they still think digital watches are a pretty neat idea. This, if you recognize it, is from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Unless you're a nerd like me, it's okay. Here's another quote. Well, I don't think you see it very good. It's by Richard Feynman, who is one of the most, who was a Nobel Prize winner, very famous physicist. A universe of atoms, an atom in the universe. Here's another one from Neil Stephenson. The full cosmos consists of the physical stuff and consciousness. Take away consciousness, and it's only dust. Add consciousness, and you get things, ideas, and time. Do you see how different these, the conception of the self and the conception of the cosmos can go very much together with that? Take another look at this one, Arthur C. Clarke. Sometimes I think we're alone in the universe, and sometimes I think we're not. In either case, the idea is quite staggering. So this is the view of the universe according to modern science. Here we are on Earth, and Earth is part of the solar system, and the solar system is part of the Milky Way galaxy, which is part of the local group, which is part of the local supercluster, which is part of the universe. And most of it is void. And most of these planets are devoid of life. We're hoping that there is some life somewhere. The Srimad Bhagavatam Cosmology links the world of observable phenomena with the transcendental world of ultimate reality. That's what the Srimad Bhagavatam does. So here's the big picture. Again, most of the features of the Srimad Bhagavatam's creation are understood on a general level without much conflict. We talked about the material world, the Brahmajyoti, Mount Kailash, Vaikuntha, right? Now let's start. Last time we went up, now let's start going down and in. We talked about how our universe is one of the universes. There are 14 planetary systems. Here, the higher planetary systems, there are the Devas, all the demigods, and the Gandharvas, who are beautiful singers, the Apsaras, who dance very nicely. There are the Rishis, who have mystical powers that can create whole entire worlds. X-Men, eat your heart out. And then there's the lower planetary systems where you have all these demonic beings with that are very powerful, like the Nagas, the serpents, and the demons, the Asuras. There's also some places here where there are like the Pishachas and Brahma Rakshasas, these beings that can shapeshift. And anyway, there's a whole lore in there. If you ever watched Lord of the Rings, this is something like that, but in different planets. And right in the middle of these 14 planetary systems, that's where we are. It's Bhumandala. Now, what does this middle planetary system look like? You have the Brahmanda, the universe, the egg, right? You have the heavenly region, and you have the subterranean region. This subterranean region is filled with water, with amniotic water. And this Bhumandala, this disk, is basically made up of these concentric rings that are called dvipas, or islands, and oceans. So there are many of these island, ocean, island, ocean, island, ocean sequence. And the interesting thing about this disk is that it's the diameter of the orbit of Uranus. So it's huge. You have this, which is called Saptadvipa. Sapta means seven, and Dvipa means island. So it's the 7 islands going like that. On the last island, that is called Pushkaradeep, there is this mountain that is going around, which is called the Manasotera mountain. Let me talk a little bit about Saptadvipa. Each one of these islands in there, they are divided into 7 varshas with 7 countries, if you want to say it, with 7 mountains and 7 rivers. And each of these varshas, or countries within that, are ruled by a grandson of Maharaj Priyavrata. You will see that each one has a special name. If the island of Jambu, where we're at, is called the Rose Apple Tree Island, or the island of Plaksha is the Fig Tree Island, like that. Pushkara, the lotus flower, and in each one of them, there's a different worship. For example, in Plaksha, they worship the sun as the representative of God. In Kushadvip, they do the same, but with the fire god, like that. And the surrounding ocean is very interesting because it's not just a normal ocean. It's the one around us is the regular saltwater ocean. That we get everywhere. But if you notice, all the ones are like the sugarcane juice, liquor, ghee, milk, yogurt, and fresh water. Where's that ghee ocean so that we can dip, our pakoras in. Now, if you remember, I told you that there was this mountain that goes all around in the last island, the Pushkaradeep. It's called Manasotera mountain. It is said that the chariot of the sun, has one of its wheels in there, and then the other axis is placed on this central mountain, which is called Meru, or Sumeru, however you want to call it. Now you can divide beyond this Saptadvip, let's say beyond these 7 islands. You also have 3 more regions beyond this one, which is called Loka, or the inhabited one. Then you have the next one, this yellow one, which is called Kanchini Bhumi. Kanchini Bhumi is known because it is called the floor is all made of gold. And it is said that nobody lives there, actually. Why wouldn't somebody want to live in a place like that? Well, the problem is that when you drop things, because it is reflecting so much light, that thing will be lost forever. So nobody lives in Kanchani Bhumi. around Kanchanabhumi is a mountain that is called Loka Mountain. And beyond this, there's this last one that is called Alokavarsha. In Alokavarsha, nobody lives. Why is that? Because this Loka Mountain, right, is a huge mountain. It goes all the way from its place all the way up to the pole star. And so it is said that the sun, which is in between, the pole star and this Bhumandala, its rays do not penetrate like that. So all of this region outside here, that is a region of darkness. So that's why nobody lives there. If you've read the 10th canto, where it's talking about Lord Krishna, at some point he reaches a place where the horses are become when he's going to try to save the sons of the Brahmana, and he's going with Arjuna. He comes to this region where it's completely dark. This is the region. Speaking about Lord of the Rings, here's the Lord of the Rings. Now, remember that I told you that right in the middle you have this big mountain? That big mountain is called Mount Meru, and it's situated in the middle of this island that is called Jambudvip. This is where we are. You are here, right? On top of this mountain, there is something called the city of Brahma. Now, this city of Brahma is not necessarily the planet of Brahma, which is in the 14th planetary system high up there. It's just a city of Brahma. That if you were to look on from the top of this Jambudvip, this is what you will see. So here is Mount Meru, right in the middle, right, and it is divided into different varshas or different countries, right, and the southernmost part is called Bharatvarsha. So this is where we are located. Bharatvarsha is either India or the human inhabited region. So at this point, you may be going okay, this doesn't look anything like the first picture you showed us of the universe. So what's going on? Why is it so incredibly different? So let us talk about interpretations for a second. Interpretations of Bhumandala. They are a way to make sense of what is said in the sacred texts and what is observed by our senses. These interpretations are not the final word. That is very important. So what I'm going to be telling you is not the final word. Honesty is a must, and if we go about this the right way, it will actually build faith. So we had a devotee who passed away, more than 10 years ago now. His name was Sariputta Prabhu, and my presentation that I'm giving here is actually based on the book that he wrote after 10 years of research into this matter. What he saw was that if he were to take all of the statements from the Bhagavad Purana and try to make sense of them, he could make sense of them by putting them into 4 categories. And this made 4 different views or interpretations of Bhumandala. One is that it's a topographical map of South Central Asia. Okay, fair enough. Another one is that it's a map of the celestial realm of the demigods. And 2 furthermore is that it's a polar projection map of the Earth globe and a map of the solar system. Now these are very different ideas, all of them. How do you put all of them together, and why would the Bhagavatam put all of them together like that? Well, if you see this picture, is everybody familiar with the story that is being told here?
No.
No? Okay, so this is a story from Bhagavad Purana where Lord Krishna is playing with his cowherd boyfriends up there, if you notice. And at some point, Lord Brahma came down and he said, like, wow, I don't get it. Is this little cowherd boy who's playing around, is he the source of Mahavishnu? Who's the source of Garbhadakasha Vishnu? Who's the source of me? Who I'm this, I created everything like that. Like, how is it possible? It's like, it's a little blue boy playing a flute. How is this so? It just bewildered him. So he said, like, I'm going to test him out. I'm going to see what happens. So he took his cowherd boyfriends, put him in a cavern, right? And then came back. Now the thing is that Lord Brahma works on a different time scale as us. So for him, a moment was a year for Lord Krishna and the people of Vrindavan. And when he came back, he saw that all the cowherd boyfriends were still there. So like, wait, I just put him back there. So he went and looked, and they were still in there. So he came back, they were still there. So he was like, what happened? Like, are these boys a different set of boys? Are they the same boys? What is he doing? How did he do it? He couldn't understand it. And then all of these boys that were there with Krishna became Vishnu forms. And all of the calves also became Vishnu forms. And by that, Krishna, showed Lord Brahma that he could bewilder him. So, you wanted to test me out, I can bewilder you. That's what it is. So then Lord Brahma paid his obeisances, asked for forgiveness, brought the boys back, and everything was settled. What you notice in here is that this whole story is being played out here, right? Now, after you know this story, does this picture make sense to you? Yeah, but if you didn't know the story, you would say, like, wait, why is Krishna over there and there? And, the boyfriends, counter boyfriends here, are they the same here and there? Or are they different? Like, things would be confusing. Is that, like, why would it be like that? So, if you know the story, you will know that, well, if I just focus on that part over there, that is the first part of the story. This is the second part, and this is the last part of the story. But for doing that, I have to, like, focus in on one thing and forget about the other for a second. Then I have to focus here and forget about the third one. So that's what Sariputta said was what was probably happening with the narration of the Vedic universe. That you have these four different models, that they are being combined into the same narration. And if you know the story, it won't be too confusing. Because you go like, oh, okay, so I just have to focus on certain things and forget about others. Or focus here and forget about the rest. So that's how he says that this composite map or picture is not a problem if we understand the underlying intent. Speaking about intent and inconsistencies, second dates are trickier. They ask the same questions as on the first date, looking for inconsistencies. So let us look first at the first model, which is the solar system in projection. A fancy word to say that is stereographic projection. Can you say stereographic projection? Very good. So, in here, we're neglecting certain features, as I said, you're putting aside. Like the large dimensions of the Vipas. We said that, this goes all the way up to the orbit of Uranus. Forget about that for a second, It's not appropriate for a representation of the Earth globe. What you do here is you take the Earth globe and you project it stereographically. Basically, you flatten it out. And you get this map, sort of like you would get, from any map of the Earth. And you have the middle of the circle is the North Pole, and then the South Pole is like all the rim outside. So that's stereographic projection. And then you will notice that then all the if you were to make that you would compare it to Bhumandala, and you would have something similar. Now, before I go further, I want to talk a little bit about heliocentric versus geocentric. Because in here, we're going to be talking about a geocentric point of view. And before anybody, freaks out, like, oh my God, are you taking us back to the Middle Ages? It's important to understand that there are two equivalent views. It's a question of perspective. Are you looking at the physics from the point of view of the Earth, or are you looking at it from the point of view of the Sun? It's just a question like that. So, for example, in here, you can do physics and everything on a plane, and as long as you maintain that it's on a plane and everything, you will have the same result. Well, yeah, you will get to the same conclusions as if you were doing it standing on Earth. But just you have to, have the difference that one you're moving and the other one you're not. In the plane, you could just as well say like, oh, the Earth is moving below me, or I am moving and the Earth is stuck. So it's just a point of view. If you do it in the heliocentric, you will have the Sun in the middle. You will have all the planets going around in ellipses around it. If you do it in the geocentric way, you will have the Earth in the center. You will have the Sun going around in a circle, but you will have the motions of the planets going around in these spirals. So it's a bit more complicated, but it's equivalent as long as you understand, that you have to change certain motions when you take it in. And some people, depending on what your application is, it might be easier to use the geocentric rather than the heliocentric. For example, if you're going to look at the stars, right? I want to know where should I point my telescope tonight to find Venus? Well, I can't use the heliocentric for that. I need a geocentric that will tell me, like, look, you go here and there. That's where it is. And this is a geocentric point of view. So it really is on that. So let us look at how day, night, and the seasons are explained according to this view of the Bhagavatam. Well, if you look at the Earth and flatten it out like that, you will start noticing that the Sun, which goes around in the ecliptic. This is the ecliptic is the name that they give for the orbit of the Sun around the Earth when you're looking at it from a geocentric point of view. When this is flattened out, you will have the ecliptic going around in a sort of like ellipse that is off-centered. And if you understand that this is just a projection, of it, well then you're going to explain the day, the night, and the seasons in the same way that you would explain as if you had a round Earth rather than a projection. How do the seasons and the days and the nights how are they explained? Well, simply you see that because of the tilt of the Earth. Here right now we're in June, the solstice. We're a little bit closer to the Sun. Well, in December we're a little bit more far away. Everybody knows this, and that's how we get it. Now, how does it look when you flatten the Earth out and you're looking at it in that way? What you will see is that depending on the position of the Sun on that ecliptic, during the summer you will have the Sun orbiting very much close to the north here, and the terminator, which is the line dividing day and night, is concave. While when you have it in the equinoxes, which is fall and spring, the Sun is a little bit further away, and the terminator is one in front of the other. Right? Okay, and when you are in the winter, the sun is further away. It's closest to the south, which is all the rim, and the terminator will be convex. Okay. Anyway, the other one. So in this way, why is it so? Well, it's just because of the way that it looks like when you flatten out this thing. But what is really happening is, the sun is here, and you're getting, a certain amount of light, and when you flatten it out, it either comes like this, like that, or like that. So there's no problem with that, right? You just have to understand that it's a polar projection. This explains the seasons, and there's a meaningful definition for the idea of diametrically opposite. Let me just say one thing here. There are some people within the internet that go about saying that the Earth is flat. That because you're talking about this Bhumandala, which is a disk, then the Earth is flat. And to prove that it is flat, I'm going to quote not the Bhagavatam or any other Vedic scriptures, but I'm going to quote all the videos from YouTube that I've seen from the Flat Earth Society. That is my pramana. That is my valid source of knowledge. So please don't do that. What you would have to explain this change in your model with flat Earth. There is no way that you can explain with flat Earth this change of the terminator. To explain the day, the night, and the seasons, you cannot explain it like that. Why would it curve in this way or that way? When you understand that it's just the way that it looks like when you flatten out a projection, then okay, no problem. But if it's literally flat, why is it that when you go like this or when you come closer, does this have to change? It doesn't have to change. So that is one of the evidences. I'll give more evidence as we go of why we're not talking about literal flat Earth. See, home is behind, the world ahead, and there are many paths to tread, through the shadow to the edge of night, until the stars are alight. Mist and shadows, cloud and shade, all shall fade, all shall fade. Anybody know where this quote is coming from? Lord of the Rings. Again, yeah. Nerd, yeah. The solar system in 3 dimensions. So this is the second model. Remember that we talked about 4 models. So the first one was the Bhumandala as a projection of the Earth, or also called stereographic projection. Right. Now this one is thinking. Let us think of Bhumandala as a three-dimensional solar system. Well, first of all, notice that when you talk about about the solar system, you already have a plane, don't you? You have all of the different the sun in the middle and all of these different planets going around, basically in a plane. So you don't have to talk about a flat Earth. You can just think of this as the plane of the planets. Now in here we notice that the outer planet of Bhumandala is basically all the way up to the diameter of the universe. But in here we see that Bhumandala is not the diameter of the Earth. It's too big for the diameter of the Earth. It's too small to be the Milky Way. But it's just right for the solar system out to Saturn. So that makes us think like, well, we could. There's a good reason why we can think of Bhumandala as a solar system. The most one of the things that then comes to mind is, well, what is the conception of the universe then, right? Because maybe are they talking really about just the solar system, or are they talking about something bigger? Like what is the conception of universe for the Bhagavatam? That's something that makes us question it. The most striking feature is that these rings, they actually agree with the size of the solar system. That is, means it's not in between either this or that. It's like so much, not too big, not too small, just the right porridge, right? The Goldilocks. That you have to know. Okay, the ring structure explained as an approximate apogees and perigees of planetary orbits. If I remember how I told you that if I take the planets from a geocentric point of view, they will start going around in these spirals, right? Well, if you take the spirals and place them on top of Bhumandala, just to see how they matched up. Do you notice that they have a rough matching to them? Notice how this one, goes all the way up to this edge, and when it and the inner edge there, it also sort of lines up with another one of those islands and things. And same thing with this one. This one is Mars. It's not a perfect, but it's roughly, you can roughly see like, okay, it sort of matches there. So these matchings to the apogee and the perigee makes us wonder, well, this is a correlation, and could it be, here's a question, could it be that when they're talking about these rings, they're really talking about the distances to the planets? If that is the case, then what we're seeing is that there's advanced astronomy right there in the Bhagavatam, but it is encoded. If we are to make the correlation, the correlation is not perfect, but it is highly improbable that the correlation is just by chance. Tadakutta Prabhu, who made this analysis, he actually started, creating a computer program to look at all the possible different combinations that, like by chance you can get this thing, and he actually showed that it is highly unlikely that somebody can just like come up with these sort of alignments by chance. These are several close alignments that give weight to the hypothesis that Bhumandala was deliberately designed as a map of the solar system. Speaking about numbers, I didn't have any accurate numbers, so I just made up this one. Studies have shown that accurate numbers aren't any more useful than the ones you come up with. How many studies showed that? 87. So now we're going to the third model. What were the first two? First one was stereographic projection, right? The second one was the solar system, right? And now we're going into the third one, which is the Earth and the local geography. If you look at the statements from the Bhagavatam, you will see that they talk about major mountains and rivers in India that are mentioned there, that are in Bharatvarsha. And it's like, oh, okay, well, they're talking about the Ganges. They're talking about the Saraswati River. They're talking about the Himalayas. Oh, well, we know where that is here on Earth, right? So they might be talking about that. And what some scholars have done is they've tried to match, this Jambudvip, this central island. Remember where the Mount Meru is? They tried to match that one up to the map of South Central Asia, and it's maybe, okay, kind of matches up. The Mount Meru, which is that big mountain, which by the way is a mountain made of solid gold. Here's an interesting fact, just FYI, kind of. If somebody asks you, like, why is the sky blue? What is your answer?
Vishnu's belly button.
Say that again?
Vishnu's belly button.
Vishnu's belly button is blue. Okay, here is one. Another.
The density of the air.
Yeah?
How light refracts through the density of the air. So
Okay, very good. So it's Rayleigh diffraction. Good. Any other?
It's the color of Lord Vishnu that's permeating through the whole of the universe.
Okay, so it's not just his belly button, it's everything about it. Alright, so do you want to know the version of the Yoga Sutras who have a similar cosmology as the Bhagavatam? According to them, they say that the following, that the Mount Meru isn't just gold, it isn't just solid gold. It actually, the sides of Mount Meru have different precious stones in it. And so you have, on the southern side, you have emeralds or lapis lazuli. Is it lazuli or lazuli? Anyway, that is on the southern side. On the western side, I believe it's something like diamonds, and on another side, it's amber. And on the other side, I think it's, what is it? Crystal, something like that. So when the sun hits the different sides of the mountain, the light that it reflects is a different color. So on one side of the mountain, it will be reflecting a yellow color, the amber. On another one, will be reflecting the one of silver, will be reflecting white sky. The one of diamonds will be reflecting a clear sky. And the one which is facing the south, i.e. us, is blue. So I don't know about you, but I like that explanation, much better than the Rayleigh diffraction. So that, but anyway, so just to let you know that there are all of these. This understanding of the Puranas is not just the Bhagavad Purana. It permeates throughout much more of the Vedic literatures. Now, also one interesting thing that should be noted is that there isn't just one understanding of the universe. So if you go to the Jyotish Shastras, does anybody know what the Jyotish Shastras are? The Jyotish Shastras are the ones that talk about how you do the calculations to do astrology. So they're very much like down to earth. You need to know where such and such planet are going to be, so that you can know, like, okay, so this person born in this time, this is what's going to happen in their life and all that. Or this is the most auspicious time to do this fire sacrifice, like that, for whatever. Their view of the universe is very much close to the medieval understanding of the universe in Europe. The Ptolemaic system, it's very similar to the Ptolemaic system. The planets are round, things are the Earth is still the center, but things are going around in like this. It's everything is the right dimension. There are no planes. There's no. It's very much like what you would expect, that, which is very different from the Puranic understanding. The astrologers who looked into who would be working with these Jyotish Shastras, they themselves were very confounded by the idea, like, what are the people that are with the Puranas? What are they saying? This doesn't make any sense to us. So it's not a new thing that we are bewildered by that. It's something that even commentators from our tradition back in the medieval ages, they were asking like, we don't completely understand what is the matching between this Bhumandala and our round Earth. So it's important to understand that there's different points of view of how you view the universe, even within the quote-unquote Vedic system. Anyway, back to the Pamir Mountains. So Mount Meru, it is said there to be the Pamir Mountains, sort of, if you try to match it. Bharatvarsha is, which is the lowest one of these countries here, Jambu, would be sort of like India here. The other 8 Varshas, the other 8 countries in Jambu, they are weaker identification, and the other Dvipas, the other rings, that's very speculative. So it only really works when you're saying like, oh, this is India, and this is like things around India. One thing that one can see though is that when you do a cross-cultural theme in the cosmology, there's a general culture phenomenon where the cosmological structure is identified with local geography. So you have here, for example, the idea that Bhumandala is like a lotus flower, right? Where the middle is the pericarp of the lotus flower. Do you notice how it looks very much like Mount Meru? So they sort of like see it that way. On top of Mount Meru, it's said that the Ganges, the celestial Ganges, descends and splits into 4 rivers. The southern one is the one that we actually call the Ganges. Before it comes to us, it is actually called the Alakananda River. At the base of Mount Meru, there are these trees, these huge trees that are around it. That one is said to be the rose apple tree. That's why our island is called the Jambu tree. This tree, if you start looking at different ways of what they say about it, can sometimes be related to the tree of life that is talked about in Christianity. It's in a place where it's heavenly. One thing that I probably should mention is that in geography, that lower part, the Bharatvarsha, is the human inhabited region. All the other ones are inhabited by higher species, by heavenly, by divine beings. And generally, it is said that when a person has very good karma, they generally go to places like Indraloka, the planet of Indra, or the sun or the moon, where they have these amazing bodies and have so much sense pleasure that we can't even imagine. But at the end of a certain period of time, when their karma runs out, when their good karma is like, okay, you're done, no more credit, then they fall down back to the earth. But before they take human birth again, to like either come back up or go back down, they land in some of these regions, according to their karma, to expend that last amount of good karma that they have, and then they come to here, Earth, boring Earth, and that's where they have the choice again to like create good karma to go back up, or create bad karma and fall down. So that's something important there too. So in these heavenly regions, it is said that the jambu tree is and all these other trees, they create these amazingly big fruits that when they fall, they create rivers. And when these rivers, of mango and other kinds of delicious fruits. That when the inhabitants of that place, they drink of that, they get like very strong, healthy, powerful bodies. Their bodies smell good. They don't need deodorants. It smells very nice. They get longevity. And when that river dries out, on the banks we have gold, and that gold is turned into like all of the different ornaments for the demigods. So we were talking about like a very, very nice place, which could be said to mirror, what heaven was for the Christians, and that and the tree of life. Also notice that this tree isn't on top of a big mountain. Well, if you start looking at the familiarity of this tree on top of a mountain and the rivers and things like that, you will see that across the world, throughout ages, they have very similar themes. So, for example, here, Africa. About Africa, right? You have a world-girding serpent that is going around a disc. The Earth is like a disc, and they have this pole which goes all the way up to the heavens. They don't have a tree; they just have a pole. In China, for example, they have from the Buddhists they have this idea of the rings, and also of a mountain. And remember how I told you that there are different sides to the mountain. Well, also with the different sides of the mountain, besides the color of the sky, there are certain colors that are assigned, specific colors to each cardinal direction. It's the same colors that you have, in Quranic like that, and you have this it's not a tree, but it is a column that goes up to the heavens, and you could say, well, that's because it's China and they just borrowed it from there. But what about in the Americas? The Americas here, I believe it's the Mayans or the Aztecs, can't remember at this moment. You have the central mountain that has these smaller mountains around it. The central mountain has also the idea that there's a river that comes in and divides into four. Wow, that sounds familiar, doesn't it? Also, the colors around it are almost the same, on the cardinal directions. And it is said that below, there's like a flower. Remember the idea of the flower? That they also have that idea. And there's instead of 14 planetary systems, they have 4 worlds and 4 petals. So it's very familiar, all of this. If you go up to the Norse, up there, you will find that it also talks about these rings, and below those rings there's a sea. Remember the amniotic sea? So you have the sea. You have the tree that is on top of a mountain. You have the world-girding serpent. So many of these themes are going around and around and around all over the world that you have to ask yourself, what's going on here? You can see, for example, the Norse, as I explained, the world-girding serpent, the tree on top. In Nigeria, there's that pole over there. The Koreans having the islands. The tree of life. Physically, a real tree is connected with the structure of the universe, and an allegorical tree representing the universe as a reservoir of life. The Yakuts of America. In the Bhagavad Gita, you talk about a tree that is inverted, representing the world. the Mayans talk about there being 7 heavens, and this tree is basically going through each one of them like that. In Peru, in the Chilipo in Peru, they talk about how there's the underworld, there's the world above. There's a giant eagle that eats or that fights with the underworld serpent. And so you have, or the Lenape, where you also have
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. I just come to say I wanted to encourage this program.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all for coming. Excellent.
Would you like to know more about the universe?
I want to sit and hear, but
Please.
I'm just coming from a program, going to another program. I didn't know about this, but anyway, it's clashing with my other programs.
It's okay, Maharaj.
Are you doing it anywhere else? Anytime else?
Not at this moment. Well, I'll be doing it in Sweden in a couple of weeks,
That's too far.
and in Russia afterwards.
Further away.
Yes.
Anyway, all the best. Please continue with this. It's a very valuable contribution.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna.
So these themes about you can say, well, it is just by chance. It is the fact that maybe somebody like the Greeks, they had a small mountain next to them that is called the Mount Olympus, and they said, oh, that is the mountain where the gods live. And the Norse said, no, our mountain over there, they are the ones that is the one that connects it to the Asgard, right? But so you could say that it's more like psychology, human psychology. However, you can't pin this down on psychology only. Why? Because you could say that would be okay if it was just like one feature. But did you see how many features they were doing? And not only how many, but also how specific some of those features were. So this lends to the idea that we're not just talking about a psychological thing. Now the other possibility that we could have is that, well, maybe it's that there was communication between these places, but then we're talking about communication even at a time when we think that there wasn't any communication between the Americas and the old world and Africa like that. It's like, wait, this is like way longer. Do you really want to go there? So maybe it's communication, but then there it seems like there was a civilization there that was spread much before, and it could be that this was the Vedic civilization, if not an earlier. Now the third one is that all these people from around the world had actual contact, with higher beings, and because of that, they started, developing like, oh yeah, well there is Indra, but these other people they call them Zeus, and these other people they call him Odin or Thor, like that, and that there was really something a mystical part of it, like why is it that the dragons in China look so much like the Loch Ness monster, here in is, or the fairies. We don't there's a lot of folklore that it could be that it's just fossilized. It's a fossilized understanding, or it's a fossilized view of the universe that comes from much before, and it was taken into just myths of the region. There's a possibility. Here's Eve's temptation. So what you're saying is that it is low calorie, high in fiber, won't make me fat, will keep me young, fill me up without making me feel bloated, and will help me meet man. So, tree of life. So, as I explained, here, the world European serpents, the multi-level universes, world trees, principal cardinal mountains, that's too coincidental to be a coincidence. Quote by Yogi Berra, if you guys have heard about him. It's from America.
No, I have.
You have? He has so many quotes like that it's just like, it's you don't know whether he is completely insane, like completely out of his mind, or if he's really a genius. It's sort of like that. So as I explained, it's either cultural diffusion, independent invention by psychological factors, or direct experience of higher realms. Talked about this already, the diffusion. And nearly all cultures mentioned believe that humans can gain direct access to mythological regions and beings described. So that's also one thing to keep in mind. So let's go to the final one of these, which is the realm of the demigods. So the first three models. The first one was?
Flat.
Yes, the projection. The stereographic projection. Very good. The second one was? Map of the solar system. Very good. The third one? Well, the idea that it's a map of South Central Asia, right? And this one is the fourth one and last one, which is the realm of the demigods. Big parallel, heavenly Earth is distinct from the small Earth globe. Parallel Earth is not accessible to our ordinary senses. So this is an idea that maybe we're talking about a different realm that is just not accessible to us. Great yogis and sages visited this realm using special mystical powers, siddhis. And there are important sites regarded as gateways for empowered persons. So, many times, you talk here about like places like Stonehenge, places like that, where it's like places of power, where, some people believe it could be like a portal to another place. So there's many of these places around the world where people talk about that. It's not just here. Now, how could that be so? Is there any plausibility, scientifically speaking, for that? Well, have any of you heard about Pokemon Go?
Yeah.
Yeah, all of you know, the children probably had you like. So, what is the idea behind Pokemon Go? It's that you have this device, you have this cell phone, and if you have the right app, right, you can just point it at any structure outside, and it will superimpose on that image, the image of Pikachu or whichever Pokemon you want, like that. But it's not just superimposing it, right? Because somebody else who also has that app, they will also see your Pikachu, and their Pokemon will be able to fight with your Pokemon, right? And you will have battles and like that. And not only that, but you can also like use like real world currency to buy certain things for your Pokemon like that. And and then when you go around it, like that, you see that there is something there, and then you pick up like this other Pokemon that like that, and people will be able to see it who also have that. If you don't have that app, you're missing out on everything, right? What if these great sages, these great mystics, that have developed, certain power, have downloaded an app into their minds that allow them to see a reality superimposed on whatever there is around, a reality that is no less real than this one, if you have the app. So, if you're a sage, you'll be seeing so much going on. You'll be able to see like these devatas, playing, with other devatas or fighting with the asuras, the demons, like that, and you'll be able to see mystical powers developing things where you only saw previously just like ordinary physical processes going on, things like that, because you have downloaded that app. So here's just a possibility of how you could see that what the Vedas are saying could be understood in from our point of view. Now, Bharatvarsha is the entire Earth. You have people like Thiru Venkata Swami from the 19th century South India that was looking at, well, let me see how I can relate Bharatvarsha with and geography in general with all of the different planets and systems like that, so as to make a solar system. So we have that point of view that they were trying to make heads and tails as the solar system. Pradesundar Moitra Madal, also from 19th century Bengal, he was thinking, well, maybe there's well, you can't see it very well here. Here's a map of the Earth, right? Here's America, here's Europe, Asia, like that. And it says here like Himalayas. And then it says that over here, that's all of the rest of geography. So basically, he put like all of the Earth down here. But then you have problems here because you're saying like, well, the Himalayas are here, but why are the Himalayas also there? So you start running into these problems. Some other people, back in the 1970s, from South India, they started saying, well, maybe if we put the Earth on top of a mountain on Bharatvarsha. So it's like, well, that doesn't really help, right? We're seeing that this has not been a problem that we're just having right now. It's a problem that has consistently, because it seems that you need to have probably access to other senses, or one thing that I've also often thought is that when these other realms, like all of these other varshas that we don't have access to now, became inaccessible to us when Kali Yuga started, because we became quarantined, basically, in some sense. All of these other places, beautiful places that I told you about, the mangoes, rivers, and things like that, that is for people who have good karma. We are Kali Yuga rejects here that have the worst karma that humans in the age where things are very degraded. You don't want people like that going over and putting fracking over that over those lands. You don't want people dumping in all of their trash in these places. You want to keep them like, okay, you stay on that little piece of land. That's your human habitat region. Here's a quote by Neil deGrasse Tyson: "The universe is under no obligation to make sense to you." One important thing about all of this is that the universe is filled with life. Here's a Hindu large-scale structure of the universe. You have Satyaloka, where Lord Brahma lives. Then afterwards, you have Tapaloka, Janaloka, and Maharloka. These three places, that's the one where the rishis live. If you're born there, if you have the karma to be born there, you immediately are born there with all the mystic powers, all the 8 mystic cities that you're able to create, like miracles, like create a whole planet. You have that power. That's in this place. And then after that, there's Dhruvaloka, which is the pole star. And from here, from Dhruvaloka down, this is, if you zoom in into this little part, you get that one. So after Dhruvaloka, the pole star, you get the Saptarishi. Saptarishi, also known as the Big Bear constellation, Ursa Major, Seven Sisters, however you want to call it. Below that, then you have the different planets, like the seven planets, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, like that. So basically all the inner planets and the outer planets up to Saturn. They don't talk about Uranus, Neptune, or Pluto. Well, Pluto we don't even talk about it anymore. But they talk about, and it's interesting because if you notice, Saturn is still within the region of Loka Loka, within that region, but Uranus would be outside of it. So one thing that is speculated is that to be able to see Saturn, you can see it with your naked eye, but to be able to see Uranus, you actually have to use a telescope. So there's a connection there, between the fact that Uranus is beyond Loka Loka, and Saturn is still within that region, and Saturn is the last one that you're able to see, the last planet that you're able to see with your naked eye. There's a group of stars, then the moon, then the sun, and if you zoom in on that, you have the sun, Rahu, which is the one that is said to be causing the eclipses. Then you have the planets of the Siddhas, the Charanas, and the Vidyadharas. If you're born in these places, you are born with the ability to fly. Nice. If you ever woke up and thought like, oh, that was a nice dream in which I was dreaming that I was flying. Maybe it is that you're still having remnant thoughts about a past life in which you were a Siddha, Charana, or a Vidyadhara. Then you have Antariksha. Antariksha is a place where you will find generally like ghosts, of these poltergeists, and very very low beings like that. Then you have the Earth, and below the Earth, then you have all of these lower planetary systems. The what is called the heavenly underground planets, and below that there's the hellish planets and Lord Vishnu, Vishnu, with Lord Brahma coming out. That's at the very end, before the Nirvaleka ocean. Here's just a few pictures of what it's like, to be Lord Brahma at the very top, or to be one of the sages, where you are born, with all the mystic powers, or maybe you are born into one of those planets, like Saturn, or the moon, or the sun, like that. You get to be a demigod, or the Vidyadharas that you're born into flying immediately, or later on, like the Pishachas, or Rakshasas, like that. But if you go to the lower systems, the lower planetary systems below Earth, it's not that everything there is like just horrible. No, actually, they are called the heavenly subterranean planets. It is said that there are 7 lower systems, according to the Jyotish Shastras, the ones that we said previously are the ones that you calculate everything. They do try to make some connection with this, and the way that they explain the subterranean heavens is that they are chasms in the earth. The subterranean heavens, they are said to be more opulent than even the heavens, the divine heavens where the demigods live. Why? Because they are extremely materialistic, and so they have a higher standard of sense gratification there. So you find all these different races, like the demons, the multi-hooded serpents, all of them they live there with their wives, their husbands, their children, like that, and in extreme opulence, but in there they don't care about God. So maybe if you have good karma, but you are very much averse to the idea of God, you can be born there, and you have you have the possibility of never having to think about any of these things, rather than just like focusing in on acquiring power and just living a life like that. So below that, you also have the heavenly region, which is called the Pitriloka, where it is said that this is the place where the forefathers live. Well, actually, it's not only there. There is also some other in other places of the universe, but this is a very prominent place. In India, it is said that it's not so much here in the West, I think, but in India there's this idea that when one of your when your father dies, then you're supposed to offer certain oblations to them every year. That is called the pinda. And by doing that, then you allow that your father to have a lot of pious credits, so that he can maintain his position in the Pitriloka, just enjoying that afterlife. And when you die, you expect your son to also be doing the same thing for you. And in this way, it's like a thing of generations that they're offering to the previous. Now, when you don't have any more relatives that are doing that for you, then what happens? You fall down and you have to come back to Earth. Generally, where? To the same family, family lineage that you were before, to try to repay the debt that was given to you. So you're in like this constant cycle, where you're paying the debt and you're enjoying the results, and paying the debt and enjoying the results. Now this Pitriloka is interesting, because that could be maybe paralleled with the Christian outer body experiences, where they say that I saw a light and I saw my parents or my grandfather there, or like that, and they were reading me like that. Maybe they were going to, their parents were in Pitriloka. That's possibility. And so we said that I did not put it here because in the general presentation I don't talk about it. But since we are talking here about Hinduism and all the different aspects of it, there are hellish planets. So here there's also the idea of hell. It's not just one; it's many. We have many different types of hells for like all the different things that you can think of. But it's not an eternal hell. That's the important thing to keep in mind. It's not an eternal hell. You go there just like to the heavenly planets, for some time. You pay for whatever you had to do. Okay, you keep going, on your way. So there is no thing like eternal damnation. There is just pay your debt, keep going. And then at the very bottom of the universe, then, as I mentioned, there's Lord Vishnu, who is in with a multi-headed cobra-like serpent, Anantashesha. And Anantashesha, this multi-headed serpent, he is in charge of the false ego and tamaguna. He destroys creation at the time of annihilation by manifesting the Rudras in anger. So you were asking about Lord Shiva. So Anantashesha, he manifests these 11 Rudras to be able to do that. Lord Shiva's object of meditation is Anantashesha, and it also says that Anantashesha supports and lives within Bhugola. Here's a quote by David Bowie. I'm sure everybody here knows it. I find only freedom in the realms of eccentricity. And here's another quote by Haggard. My death is very near to me, and of this I am very glad, for I desire to pursue the quest in other realms, as it has been promised to me that I shall do. Interesting, like how he was not a Hindu, but he understood the idea of realms and of an afterlife. The idea of macrocosm and microcosm is very tight in here, where the Puranas view of the universe as the bodily form of the Supreme Being, and also as a meditation aid. They look at the Lord and say, well, maybe the feet can be thought of as the lower realms, maybe around the waist, that's where the mandala is, and up here, Satyaloka, where the Brahma is. And so they think of the Lord, and they think of the different planetary systems as a meditation aid, like that. But there's also an analogy with the chakras. If you have heard about the chakras, then saying that the root chakra has to do with Bhumandala, the earth disk. Svargaloka, which is the realm of the demigods, it's right here in the navel. Satyaloka is up here. So, and there is a little bit more to this. Let me just check the time today. Okay, we're good. There's a story that I was hearing from a devotee in Mayapur. He has the most incredible experiences because before he came to Krishna consciousness, he very much dealt with. He was very much eager to know about, the mystic culture of India, and so he started his journey with the tantrics. The tantrics are like the black magic people in India, and they said that and at some point, he was told like, oh, this lady over there, she really has power. Like, if you want to see real power, you have to go to her. So he said, okay, sure. It took him weeks, trying to find her. He couldn't find, like, where was she, like that. Finally, he was told that she was in this town and in a specific house. So he went to that house, and when he got there, so that nobody was home. There was nobody there. So it was like a deserted house, and the only thing that there was on the veranda, there was like a rug or a shawl, whatever it was, on right there. So he just took it up, just to see like if there was anything below it, like that. And then he heard a voice, "Leave that alone!" He was like completely shocked. The rug spoke to him. And then the voice said, "If you wanna speak to me, come when the sun sets." So he decided to do that. He left and he came back when the sun set. When he came, it was just the sun was just about to be gone in the horizon, and from that rug, the shape of a lady appeared, a very deformed lady, and what he was told was that she was this very powerful tantric mystic that was able to travel through the different realms. But the way that she was doing it was through tantra, and tantra is it's not like yoga. In yoga, you have to perform like a lot of austerities and for a long time, and it's very gradual. In tantra, it's sort of like prying open, these the different powers that are in us, and sometimes what you have to do for that is not it can occur into very bad karma, like terribly bad karma. But everybody knows it, but they don't. Some people just want power, whatever it is. So this lady, had done like whatever things, and it seems like she was able to go and come back from these different realms. by connecting her her spine, her chakras, like that, to the universe, to the central, spine of the universe. And she would materialize in one place and materialize in the other. But by doing that, she would materialize, but not exactly again perfectly. So she was like very formed like that, and she basically told him that you're a neophyte. I don't deal with neophytes. If you want to see some power, go to this other guy and he'll teach you some things. So he did that. But this was an interesting thing because it brings to life the idea that the microcosm and the macrocosm can be united, and that is a way in which some of the yogis are able to see throughout all of the universe, because they just connect to the universe and say okay, and they just focus on different aspects of their body, and in that way they're able to see into that place, or even travel to that place. Gods, demons, and astronomy. We can ask, how did people reconcile gods who have unpredictable behavior with the deterministic laws? Right? For example, the idea of Rahu that I mentioned. Rahu is this character that, according to the Bhagavad Purana, he was a demon who sat in between the demigods when the Mohini Murti was giving them the nectar, the elixir of eternal life. And when they noticed that, oh wait, he's not a devata, he's a demon, then his head was cut off. But because he had already drank a little bit of that, then his head, remained immortal while his body, was left on the other side. And that head became, because he was in between the sun god and the moon god, became the one that, became averse to both the sun and the moon. And because of that, he is the one that creates the eclipses. Now, eclipses are very deterministic. You can tell when an eclipse is going to happen, right? But a person's behavior is not like that. You would think that after that if Rahu is the one that is causing the eclipses, at some point he would say well, I'm tired of this thing. I don't I keep going to the same place and not getting any results. So how is it that that these deterministic laws are able to be combined with the unpredictable behavior? The modern assumption is that only the laws of physics are real, and all other levels of meaning are just words. So an older approach to philosophy is that there's a real existence to many different philosophical categories, including consciousness and psychology, and that attention is focused to meaningful relationships. So if you look, for example, at this picture, what do you see? Do you see a couple? Anybody else see anything?
Two different pictures.
Candle, thing in the middle, in between.
There's a candle or a cup in the middle, yeah. What else do you see?
That lady's eyes got a hat, got a face.
Yeah, it's like
Somebody
two
holding something
Mexicans, having fun, just sitting down. But it depends on how you look at it. What are the relationships, right? So in that same way, depending on how you view this story here, you can view many different things. You can view it as something that happened historically, at some time, with a real person that got his head cut off, like that. Or you can see it also as an allegory to how the planets and everything works. It just depends on the relationships that you're looking into, like that. Here are different examples of, depending on what you focus, you will see different things. For example, somebody over there, could say oh yes, beautiful Paris in the evening, right? That could be one interpretation. But somebody else could say like, well, that just shows how much light they're wasting. What a waste, Two people, one is enamored by the whole scene, the other one is disgusted by the scene. If you look at the one in the middle, you could say like, one would be like, oh, that is such a sad thing, like a girl with cancer, right? Somebody else might say like, wow, it's so nice that this lady is helping like that. There are different ways of looking at things, and so what we find here is that there's a multi-contextual view of reality. The universe is seen as ultimately incomprehensible whole, with many meaningful aspects. It may be that we might not be able to see and understand everything about the universe, but we may be able to focus on different meaningful aspects of it. And these multiple meanings relate the universe as a whole to an individual as a conscious being. So if we try to do a single mechanistic model of reality, that may actually be unrealistic. We may find that there's a danger of overlooking important aspects of reality, like consciousness, in trying to achieve just this mechanistic consistency. Like, oh, I need to know exactly what the world is like. Is it, again, what we were saying before, is it this or is it that? Trying to like focus. Well, what if reality is just like much more complex than we think? And then you actually have to have like these different patches here and there to be able to like get like a whole view of everything. And only in the relationships do you understand everything. Maybe if I try to say like, well, is Rahu really a head floating in space, or is it really a planet that is creating somehow the eclipses that we see? Is it one or is it the other? Well, could it be both? And it depends on how you view these relationships. You will understand one thing or the other. So this is something that the Bhagavatam gives us, a multi-contextual view of reality. Yes?
Have you heard of the analogy of 5 blind men trying to describe an elephant?
Yes. So if you're blind, and you have a big elephant, you might have to just be content with knowing certain parts of it, like that. I'm going to finish this with a purport from the 10th canto, 33rd chapter. It says that although people in general, specifically in the Western countries, are not aware of the fact, powerful personalities control our universe. The modern impersonal concept of the universe depicts an almost totally lifeless cosmos in which the Earth floats meaninglessly. Thus, we are left with the dubious ultimate purpose, quote unquote, of preserving and reproducing our genetic code, which has its own ultimate purpose of adding another link to the meaningless chain of events by again reproducing itself. Does that sound familiar? In contrast to this sterile, meaningless world concocted by ignorant materialists, the actual universe is full of life, personal life, and in fact full of God, who pervades and supports all that exists. The essence of reality is the Supreme Personality of God and His personal relationship with the innumerable living beings, of whom we are samples. Some of the living beings are trapped in the illusion of materialism or identification with the material body, while others are liberated, aware of their eternal spiritual nature. A third class comprises those progressing in self-realization from the materialistic state of ignorance to the enlightened state of Krishna consciousness. This is a purport from the 33rd chapter, which is, interestingly enough, the Rasa dance. So we began with looking at the universe, in the most wide worldview, and we have come to the most sublime understanding of reality, which is God and His relationship with all the living entities, specifically that personal relationship. Thank you very much.
you very much.
Thank you.
Do
So,
you have any questions? Or, no? Any questions?
I know it's a lot of
I've got a lot in
material.
my head, yeah.
It's a lot to chew on.
Do you have a website where you can get this information, or
Not at the moment.
okay?
Yeah, I've just been working throughout all of these presentations. Eventually, we will have to do something like that.
Very interesting.
We're also trying to help advising the TOVP in terms of how to best go about presenting some of this material.
It's going to be hard work.
Yes, it is. But hopefully, at least now, when you're able to, like you said that you were going to go into the fifth canto and read it, now things won't seem so daunting. Generally, when you go in it without this view of what's here, what's there, it's just like, oh my God, what is he talking about? It just says like a whole bunch of numbers that, oh, this is so big and this is so wide and this is so like that. But then it's like, where's the point of it all? So now, with this understanding, you're at least able to go into it and say like, okay, so now I get the big picture of things.
From a teacher's perspective, which bits of those things are relevant for your specification in terms of IES, meeting those questions that come up, the Hindu story of creation and that kind of thing, cosmology? Which bits do we need to focus on for you?
I think quite a lot of it's relevant in terms of teachers' understanding of it, but in terms of what the students would need, I think they struggle with the idea of the different kind of layers of planets and existence and different yogas and gunas, and there's lots of that that's helped me kind of get my head around it, I guess, and I think it's just pitched differently maybe than you would pitch it to the students. I don't know what you think.
So is that kind of what Monica was just presented? Would it be helpful to kind of package that in a way for the teachers at some point?
Yeah, I think definitely it's helpful for teachers who can kind of communicate it to students. But I don't know, how do you think?
Well, I noted down the points in our spec as I was coming, so I could tick them off. So on our spec, we've got for cosmology, the nature of matter, the three gunas, the four ages, Vaikuntha, origin of the universe, and Hindu views of the Big Bang, which you covered all, because I was ticking as you went through. But yeah, it's just because it's so different.
Yeah.
That's the hurdle. It's just so different
From what we know.
from what they know and what they
science,
used to,
etc.
and yeah.
It's very, it's quite nuanced as well, isn't it, compared to some explanations that you have. I always wonder, in terms of when they get their exam, how much of the, it's 1-2 questions out of a second paper from a second faith, so they've got all the other information to take. It's like it's such a big, it's a massive part of the bubble tongue, but in terms of what they're going to be doing as a student, it's just possibly 1 or 2 questions right from the second paper. It's more than likely their second phase, not the one that they really focus on.
Yeah.
What's helped me is I think previously they've got these bits of knowledge from me, but they haven't been able to connect it together because I haven't been able to connect it together. And now I see the connections, and so I think that's going to help me teach it better. I've been quite relieved that so far in our exam there's only been one cosmology question that was a short question, and it was on the trigunas, and so they could just learn 5 facts and reproduce that in an exam, and our candidates did very well. But we're on our second year now of the new GCSE, or second time through rather, and the first time through it did feel like, even though we've been teaching Hinduism a long time, what in the new specification, it's just so different, and it felt like the first time through we were just presenting, where it was new to us, disconnected facts, And the second time through, we've started to make the links. And I think this has just helped me with this bit of the spec, make the final links and see where it all comes together. So when I do it next time, I'll do it better. Is that the same for you, do you
Yeah,
think?
I think so. It's a learning process for us as well.
Yeah.
Put it together. As I say, this is really helpful for me, but I think it's like you having a fuller understanding that you can then communicate things to the students. This would go on most heads. Yes. Yeah.
You know, as practitioners, those things you read, you have the exceptions, and there's a very good example standing in the front of the room, or like Sadhguru of the room, that have got that kind of intelligence and mind that they can do those things. But for many general practitioners who read those things with vague because it's coming from a senior teacher,
Just read it.
We just like, okay, I accept that, okay, let's go, let's move on, without even kind of understanding fully.
We are supposed to kind of like discuss those things and digest those things, but to, like you were talking about, Ruth, the idea of you're using a body made of the stuff of this world to try and understand that which you have faith created it, and you're trying to understand the whole thing, which is...
It's quite easy for you to understand as well.
But you've got to have a real interest in it. You've got to have a real interest to be able to go into it in that depth, and to be able to keep going through it until you can understand it enough to be able to present it to others.
Yeah, I mean, it's for as a scientist, it's just one of those things that is the subject matter is just so incredibly interesting that you want to like dive deeper and deeper into these things. You want to know what, how, and why, and I like this. So it goes like that. And one of the things that I was telling Mataji previously, I think a year ago, is that how important it is actually to be able to for scientists to work with people who are educating, because scientists they can try to make presentations like that, but still like a lot of the concepts and like that they're not so easily digestible by the general people. That's what educators are able to do. They're able to see okay, I got it. Here is how general people can get it. They're that link that allow that possibility. It's like, okay, you have a 16-year-old that is trying to just get by throughout just without thinking too much about their zits, and so you come with this big amount of information. How do you make it relatable for them? How do you make it easy? How do you still it in a way that this is the essence, this is what you need, this is how you can process it. So that's when and this is when that happens, is that when this knowledge really gets disseminated. That is when the general people actually understand what's going on. Otherwise, the scientists, they will just have it in their ivory tower, and it's did the information ever trickle down?
And as teachers, do you have to give them? Do they need to be able to have? The students need to be able to have an understanding of the Vaishnava perspective of creation and cosmology, and Shakta's perspective of cosmology, and someone else's. Are they asked to do that kind of thing, or is it enough to be able to have relatively in-depth understanding of one particular perspective and present it within that context?
I think in terms of our specification, there's no need for them to have their distinct.
It's mainly in practices, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then understanding of the soul. So we look at Advaita and Dvaita. So we look at the two. That's where it comes in really, but doesn't really come in. Doesn't come in this section.
So it wouldn't specify specifically.
No, I've got my spec in front of me. Can I ask a really stupid question? And you had a go at explaining it to me in the car. I still don't get Vaikuntha, and my students don't either. And it's because on a spec you're given a bullet point, and then you're given a scripture to go and read. And so my specification just says the importance of Vaikuntha. And that's the bit we don't.
That's it.
That's it.
The importance of
Do
Vaikuntha.
you have that on your
Why is
spec?
Vaikuntha?
No.
No. Okay.
Well, Vaikuntha is that place, where you, once you go, you never come back again. If you remember the
Right. Because that's what they ask us. Do you come back? And we go, I don't know. Okay, that helps.
No, if you go to the heavenly worlds here, like Indraloka and like that,
Right.
you do come back because you're still within the material world.
Okay.
Vaikuntha is already spiritual worlds.
Right, and you said that to me. Didn't
Everything
you?
from the Brahmajyoti, from the
In this
Brahmans above,
Right.
the spiritual world.
Right.
Everything below will be considered the material world.
So once you get there, you don't come back. Now, Vaikuntha is specifically for when you have a desire to serve the Lord in an awe and reverence kind of way.
Okay.
It's like God Almighty, Creator of heaven and earth. There's like Lord Narayan. So, or many different avatars of God, like Lord Ram. They're in this place, but beyond Vaikuntha, there is Goloka or Krishna Loka, right? Where Krishna is there. He is not like this, like Almighty God anymore. That is like put aside, and it's like Krishna at home.